I find that efficiency is basically all under one roof. And I mean, if it's farrow to finish, all under one roof. Um, and I make all my feed, and I basically 100% integrated.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Swine Canada podcast show. I'm Dan Columbus, and I'll be your host for today's episode. I have with me again John Van Engelen from Hog-Tied Farms in Ontario. So, welcome back, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. I won't ask you to introduce yourself again. If people want to know your background, they can listen to episode one.
Yep.
So we'll get right into the topic this time. And I know we talked briefly about doing something along the lines of sustainability and efficiency and kind of the things that you've been doing to improve that. I think it's good, though, to start because that definition can be different depending on who you're talking to. So basically, what does sustainability and or efficiency mean to you when it comes to pork production?
Okay. I might have a different version than probably most people, but for me, I find that efficiency is basically all under one roof. And I mean, if it's farrow to finish, all under one roof. Um, and I make all my feed, and I basically 100% integrated. Okay, so I have a land base, some farrow to finish. I am involved. I have an elevator with my brothers and cousins. I make all my feed. I make 13 different rations here. I have a turbine on the yard. I'm generating power. Um, and I'm a packing plant owner. So I know exactly where my pigs are going to. I know exactly how they're grading, and I know what the plant wants and then what our consumers want because they tell us what they're looking for. So, and I find that efficiency for me, if you can ship one truckload out of your facility, I mean, do you want to get more efficient? And when they talk about biosecurity, 80% of the biosecurity problems is when you talk about shipping pigs from this place to that place. Traceability. Traceability, you don't have to categorize where these pigs are going because they're all going is going down the hallway. Uh, when it comes to efficiency, um, you don't have to worry about the barn being all in, all out. I'm getting market pigs all the way. So whether they're 2 weeks or 5 weeks later, they're all getting to the market weight. Um, as far as efficiency, you don't have to go from this facility to that facility. Have a person over designated here. If somebody doesn't come to work here, somebody else in the same barn can still do that work. I'm making feed. So because I'm making feed in all my feeds, if I when a feed is empty, I can wait for it to totally be empty and make it right there behind because I don't have to call a truck, tell him I want a half a ton, which he's not necessarily going to give me a half a ton for very cheap, and be at that time. And so for me, that is efficiency. And I find that if I had a 3 site facility, I'd always want to wash, disinfect, and clean everything. We do things here. We do everything pretty spotless here. We do a lot of washing, but we do not actually disinfect inside our barn. We have disinfect on the perimeters. We don't disinfect inside the barn. And it's taken me a while to actually admit to that because not too many people would say, you don't. So the reasons for this is keep the immunity inside the barn. And I feel that sometimes we are just getting too clean. So I've been in this business for 45 years, and I remember going to seminars, and they said, if you don't clean out every 5 years, you will not be in business. Well, I'm about 40 years behind, I guess, because I have never cleaned out. I've never had a serious disease. I've never had PD, TGE, all these other things. I've had PERS. First time my kids have just discovered PERS. We broke out with PERS this year, and that was the first time in about 15 years. Um, I find that if I've had a lot of producers in the industry, and they depop, repop, and within a year or two, they already break out with a mycoplasma, PERS, or something like this, or they always get hit. And when they get hit hard generally. I find that if you're too clean, they get hit harder. And so I'm trying to build resistance more or less within my herd. And so, like I said, I wouldn't do this if I was a three site facility, but because I'm all under one roof and because of my ventilation that I have in my barn, I have a what is called airworks ventilation. So it's 100% pit ventilated with a heat recovery system. So when you think about generally modern ventilation, um, basically you got three stages for each room. Well, in this ventilation system, what you normally would think is normal is not, because this works as one facility. So on my original barn back in 2000, I built the first one. There was 16 rooms for finishing pigs, and I had 12 fans. And you would think, how does that work? That's because it's a motel system above, but down below it's an open pit, and you're creating static pressure, and you restrict the air coming in the rooms. And so if I open up a door, that door should pull shut from the ventilation. And if it doesn't, it's not set right. But the uniqueness of this ventilation is the air quality, and the air quality is exceptional. You cannot smell ammonia. You smell the animals, but you don't smell the manure and everything like this. You can agitate that pit all day and you will not have any ammonia. You cannot set off your hydrogen sulfide detector because there is nothing up there. And so for me, it's the air quality sometimes it creates efficiency. And when you talk about pigs get sick there, they've been in there for 6 months, or sows have been in there for a couple of years. I've been in there for 45 years. You think I'm a little more concerned? I mean, I eat and sleep in my house, but I live in my barn. So, you want to think about good air quality. I have a daughter with asthma, and my daughter in law has asthma. So, do you think they could live and work in a barn with poor air quality? No. And so I think that's the biggest problem these days. We've gotten really efficient with the production and all the barns and everything like this, but the reality is we're not keeping up with with air quality and the engineering and how to ventilate barns these days. So that's just my opinion.
Swine Veterinary Partners offers a full range of animal health and production services to Canadian pork producers. We approach health management through personalized solution with concern for profitability while taking into account performance and the well-being of your animals.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and that's what I ask. Because if you, depending on who you ask, their definition of sustainability is going to be different. Their definition of what's efficient is going to be different, right? And it even comes back to the last episode where we're talking about you go for larger litters or smaller litters but larger pigs or something, right? And that can be a different question and answer depending on who you talk to. So you mentioned the ventilation system that you have. So I'm just wondering, other technology or techniques that you've brought in that have helped with, your sustainability and efficiency, or, we can just go even more general than that and just production in general, right?
Okay, so what I've done in the finishing barn is we actually have my first sorters I actually had and phase feeding sorters were back in 2003. They've had about 2 million hits and they've kind of gone away. So I've actually invested into new sorters back in 2013. I invested in three-way sorters with the same program, somewhat as an extension of the sows, and that is strictly for phase feeding also. And so the benefits of that is not just the phase feeding, but I can track how fast the pigs are growing and everything like this. And it does have RFID technology. So if I want to track every individual animal, which I have done for different trials and situations like this, you can tell how fast these pigs are growing. And my idea behind this is eventually, if we use this RFID technology for sorting pigs for how fast they're growing, how lean they might be, or basically if they're getting sick or not. So you can eliminate the poor ones, take them out, feed them differently, or ship them to your barbecue market. And for me, I find that we basically do not treat animals here. If they're starting to fall back, we put them in slush rooms and we ship them once a month to the barbecue industry because we feel that they're not making us any money. And like I said in the previous episode, we kind of did that trial on some sick pigs, and being $113 difference from one from the best to the worst, I think that tells us what we're doing the right thing. And we're trying to keep the health inside the barn. And it's like if somebody is sick, you don't want to sleep beside them because they're the ones that's going to give the disease to you. So it's the same thing in the barn itself also. So, and we use the pig performance tester for doing all these trials and to evaluate how to feed the pigs in our barn during their stage, and depending on how fast they grow, what they should be using as far as minerals, protein, and anything that we can make them grow faster and better and get them to the market that we want.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned, the RFID and tracking individual pigs and stuff like that, and having the different feeding. What comes to my mind is the discussion around precision feeding of pigs, right? And this idea of every pig or group of pigs that gets a different diet depending on how they're growing. So I'm wondering, if you have experience with that at all, and whether you do or not, what do you think could be potential barriers that are stopping people from going this route, or where you see that going?
Well, we are precision feeding, so we actually have the program that basically tells us where these pigs are in their stage, how many pigs are at what weight, and so we are precision feeding. We're feeding them every 22 kilos. They are going to a different feed, and so with that evaluation, we switch them over to the feeds. They're in the same room, but they go to different sides depending on their weight, and so
Hmm.
we're already doing that. And then, excuse me. And another thing is too, um, for our packer, they like to know how many pigs are going to market because the packing plant is most efficient if it's 100% full. So if they want to actually connect to our barn and they can evaluate the pigs with this program, it tells you exactly how many pigs will be going to this market at that time. If you want them at this weight range, they'll be going Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. You know exactly how fast they're growing, exactly when you want them to go to market, and you can pick and choose the animals that you even want or don't want, especially when you get into tight situations where you got holidays or if you have a disease outbreak or something like that.
Hmm.
Could you imagine if we break out with PED out here somewhere and then you cannot ship pigs anywhere for, I don't know how many hours they're talking about, but where are these pigs going to go for how many amount of hours, and where are they going to wean, and where are these weaners going to go and stuff like that? For me, I just put them down the hallway and I'm pretty sure we can still ship them to the packing plant. So I mean, I don't have that problem when it comes to disease pressure either that way.
Hmm.
And when you have a wiener guy, the wiener guy gets to get paid and he wants to get evaluated good. The sow guy wants to get his evaluation good. The trucker wants to get paid. He's got to wash his truck, he's got to fix his truck, and everybody in between has to get paid. Because I do everything myself, I'm actually getting all that myself. And actually, the funny thing about it is when I always say, like, we do a lot of the fixing ourselves, I always say, when something breaks here, that's actually when I get paid the most. Because otherwise, if I got to get somebody in here and I got to pay them $80, $90 an hour, I never get paid that much for pig farming. So, we do quite a bit of things here ourselves. We fix a
Yeah.
lot. I'm not necessarily a pig farmer all the time, too. I'm a fabricator, I'm a fixer, I'm a welder, and I do all the combining for my brothers and a few neighbors here. So, I- I'm. I'm not just a pig farmer. I'm a lot of things, and I really enjoy my life. So,
Yeah.
it's never boring. So I always, I'm always willing to learn, and you're never too old to learn. So, and I'm hoping to extinguish that or pass that on to my kids.
Yeah. Not extinguish. You don't want to do
No, not extinguish.
that.
Extend.
Yeah. So yeah, you mentioned that. So every 22 kilos, you're changing the diet. Do you see a potential of doing that more frequently, or does the benefits kind of drop off in your opinion if you're trying to do it more?
You know what? I'm sure there would be some benefits, but I'm sure there would not be. You'd have to have more technology, and then you'd have to have the blending ability right there
Yeah.
above the feed system that you're giving him to. So then you're talking about different technology, and it's not that it's impossible. it is possible because you use that technology, and this is the pig that and you could blend two different feeds to get them exactly what they need. I know it's out there, but whether it's feasible right now, probably not, because you might only save a dollar or two, and the expense of the equipment would be over and above that. So,
Right.
it's not impossible.
No, just have to figure out how.
Yes.
Sounds like your barn might be one of the ones we look at to try to figure out how.
Well, like I said, I'm always willing to try anything. As long as I think it's good. But there's a lot of things you can do and try on there, and not everything works. And if you think it's going to work all the time, then you're dreaming.
Yeah, but you have to be willing to take the risk,
For
which
sure.
might be a difficult decision to make in today's economy right now.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so I know you mentioned, you don't disinfect and that, but you haven't had really any major disease outbreaks or whatever. So I think the obvious question then is, when it comes to biosecurity, because you obviously have a biosecurity plan that's working then. So maybe delve into that and what aspects of that maybe you think are particularly effective at keeping these issues out.
So yes, biosecurity. Sure, we have heavy biosecurity. We make sure we change going in and out. And but as far as and people coming into my barn, anybody that has anything to do with the pig business or been around the pigs, they shower in. Anybody who maybe has been out of the city and not necessarily, is not a fear factor to me that they don't have chickens or a flu or anything that's going to be coming in, they just change, and with footwear stays out, and they can come in and see the facility. I'm th- it's a little bit different of my like I said, my brothers are in the dairy industry, and they have a really good facility there too, and they show people around, and there's not a problem with biosecurity there. But when it comes
Mhm.
to the pig industry, I like to show the consumers where their products are coming from, because so many people are disoriented and where they what actually happens on the farm. Like when they talk about farming, first thing comes up on the internet is old Ronald McDonald Farm, because that's the way it is, I guess. So, it's not like that. And when I talk to kids and for about ag in the class and stuff like this, I tell them, you don't all have to be a farmer, but there's people that are equipment technicians and nutritionists and everything like that, and you don't have to do that either. But what you do is your goal in life is to go to a job that you enjoy, because if you don't enjoy your job, you're probably going to be miserable, and everybody else around you doesn't even want to be around you. So, enjoy what you do, whatever you do. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing. I mean, I watched my kids get off and on the bus because I just get out of my house, I walk to the barn, I watch my kids get on the bus, off the bus, and now I'm watching my grandchildren getting off and on the bus here at my place too, because my daughter comes here, she puts her kids on the bus, they come off the bus here, and then she goes home. I mean, it. How much better can you have it? So some people go on vacation to see their kids. I go on vacation to get away from them sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's good.
No, I think it's nice to see that you are making that effort to get the information out there. And I have interviewed Clinton Monchuk and all about getting the message out and telling that story, right? Because I think as an industry, it's become very much we don't let anybody in because we're so afraid of what they're going to say if they, but obviously we need to get that information out there, especially if we want to get the younger generation interested, right? So maybe along those lines,
So
I'd be
what
interested to know a
one
little
thing
bit
I'd
more
like to
about.
say, when you talk about biosecurity, and everybody, said, "Oh, you have to shower and you have to shower, otherwise you're not going to get in." Unless you're filtering your air coming in your barn, I don't see the problem,
Yeah,
because if you have filters, fine. Everybody should shower in, because maybe you're in the breeding stock facility and that's what you should be doing, and you have a properly filtered barn. But otherwise, I mean, if the clothes that are coming in here are just from, from the city, and there's nothing else to worry about, unless the guy's rolling down in the dirt before he comes in the barn, shouldn't have to worry about it.
yeah. No, there's definitely stuff that shows, that you can have the Danish entry where it's just changing your boots or whatever, and things are fine, right? And
Yes,
So,
and we
but I
have
think
that
it's,
here.
yeah,
We have a double shower in here, and we have so it's a proper entry. There's nothing wrong with our entryway. So
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I guess getting back to it, I'm just wondering, when it comes to your involvement in, say, egg in the classroom, or obviously being open to having people come and tour, what do you think is an important part of making sure that message gets out? What do you find works really well with getting people interested?
um, what gets them involved? Basically, they have to have the interest in the first place, right? And of course, a lot of times it's with the younger generation. When I've done these Zoom calls in ag in the class, I mean, we've got them from kindergarten to grade 12, and you get totally different questions. Kindergarten, they ask about why their ears are floppy or why they got a little color to them, whereas the guy in grade 12 is wondering what you're doing with the manure and what you're doing for sustainability and carbon tax. So, so it's there's all things and different questions that you can answer, and you just give the proper answer that you think. Basically what we're doing is what we think is should be done. I mean, I have a lot of degrees just in order to ship pigs. From a swine medicine course as quality assurance in, nutrient management farm. We got all these programs that makes us supposed to be a better farmer, and I hope we are, and I'm sure we are, but we have to get that message out there. When I first started our local committee, when we had our Lambton County pork producers, we used to fill a hall of 300 people. Now I can hardly get a table full.
Mm,
There's just not many of us out there, and yet we still produce the same amount of animals. When my dad was around, he passed away 2017, but he was a guy with, a good PR man, and he always said life was so much easier when I was farming. He said when something broke, all you had to do was replace the handle, and that is true. Now it's everything when something breaks now, I call a technician,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
just
Now it's
different.
computer code.
Exactly, and they can hook up to my computer without even coming in here, right? And
Yeah,
so these are the times, and you got to be able to be willing to change with the times,
yeah,
and be more efficient. I mean, we are a heck of a lot more efficient when we first started. If you really want to know how old it's been, when I first started, it took us 220 days to raise a 220 kilo or 220 pound, which 100 kilo pig. Now we're almost getting close to 280 pounds in 60 days less. We are on the top as efficiency when it comes to feed conversion. I'm used to be 1 for 4, and now we're 2.5. You know, we are putting efficiency really into the market right now, and nobody knows it. We've just been doing it for years.
yeah. No, and getting that message out there and countering the message that agriculture is inefficient and a major environmental impact, I think is very important to get out there and be like, no, we are actually making efforts to have that efficiency there.
Exactly. We're measuring the nutrients on and off of our soil. I mean, and we get our water tested, and my water here is about as good as you can get it. So I mean, I drink it, and it's great. And that's that's we don't want any contaminants on our ground, and we just wanted. Some people want to feed the world. I'm comfortable just feeding the neighborhood. But if the world wants to buy it, I'm comfortable with that too.
Yeah. Works out for
Yeah.
everybody. Um, okay. Well, so we are getting close to the end of the time. Before we get to the final three questions, I'll ask again this episode, what take home message do you want the listeners to get today?
I think we should embrace technology and use it as an opportunity and to keep our next generation in there. That's what keeps them interested and keeps them. Not everybody wants to be doing physical labor all their life. We should be physical, but still, we should have a mind to use the technologies that there, and that's going to make us more efficient in our industry.
Yeah. No. Great message.
It's time for our famous three.
Okay, before I let you go, we didn't in the last episode, but I'm going to ask you the questions this time. We have three questions that we ask everybody. The first question is, what is your go-to or favorite swine-related resource?
So my favorite resource actually through all the years is I always went to seminars. I used to go to 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 seminars a year just to keep up in the industry and to see something if you can get one thing and adapt it into your facility and see if it works or not. And but since COVID, it's been podcasts. I've really enjoyed the podcasts. I'm listening to about a dozen different podcasts and it all has to do with swine. One's from Ireland, even, and from the States, and all the genetic companies, and they all have their opinions, and you just try and make the best and see if you can take some of their opinions to your own program. And
Yep.
so that's what I use.
Yep. Lot of good information out there, and we'll do a shameless plug for the Swine at Canada
Yes,
podcast
well, I
channel
listen
there.
to
So
that all the time too.
well, might as well,
Yeah.
promote it while you're on here. So, okay, yeah. So our next question then is, when you think outside of ag or swine, what is a book or resource that you would recommend for people?
Well, because I'm dyslexic, I'm not a very good reader, very poor, and I only discovered this with about 10 years ago. But I've never been able to finish a novel, although I do read magazines, but sometimes I have to read them twice in order to get it sunk into my head. so, but I do like documentaries. I love documentaries on television about history and geography, and that's really what I'm interested in. I love documentaries, architecture. I love the architecture and like some of these European churches and stuff like that. That fascinates me.
Yeah, I really get into those. I go through periods where I watch like every documentary I could find on Netflix and Prime and
Yeah.
all those other things. So yeah, I really enjoy those as well. So our final question then is, when you think back, and I guess you got the 45-year career, when you think back at like successful leaders or other pork producers who are particularly successful, maybe include yourself in that. What is a characteristic that you think sets the successful ones apart from the ones that maybe not so much?
Well, and I think I had mentioned it before, and I think it is people that enjoy what they're doing. And they enjoy what they're doing. They're willing to get better, and they want to get better, and that and they're willing to change. And so that to me is basically what you're looking for is, you know, something you enjoy and willing to change, and that will get you through the future.
Yeah. And I would say you might not enjoy it all the time, but you
Yeah,
should enjoy it most of the
that's right.
time.
That's a good
Yeah.
start.
Okay. Well, that's all I've got for you, so I could let you go now. I will before though. I'll thank you again for coming on the show and doing 2 episodes. We don't generally get that, so hopefully the listeners get something from it.
Well, I hope they do too, and I hope I wasn't too critical about anything too much.
No, no more than anybody else has been.
Good,
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was a
Thanks
pleasure.
again.